Welcome to Everything Can Be a String as long as you know format. Hey, I'm Eric, and one of the most central commands we have in AL, one of the most widely used, one of the very, very oldest command in the language is the command format. Format is a function that can take a variable of pretty much any type and convert that into a string, or more precisely, show a string representation of the data. But it's probably easier if I actually show you guys. So here is the usual. I've just started a new extension, and let's start simple. That let's say we have a decimal. And you know that decimal has a value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's pretty good. So if we were to build a string, so let's actually do this. So we'll create a string here, or text. So we're not able to do this. So at some point we will just show what's in the string. So that's what we do with message. But you see, we get a type conversion error here saying that you cannot say string equal decimal. Some of these things, if you have a bit of knowledge of JavaScript, you will know that JavaScript is very forgiving in some of these cases where JavaScript doesn't really care that much about types, which is why somebody invented TypeScript. But AL do care a lot of types, actually. AL care about types in some cases. In other cases, it does not care about type. We'll get to that. So in this case, we get an error saying, hey, cannot implicitly convert type decimal to text. So if this was an integer, right? So we could easily say decimal equal integer, no problem. The compiler will take care of that and figure out how to convert an integer to a decimal. But in our case, this won't work. So what do? Well, you have somehow to convert your decimal to a text. So maybe we had a function called decimal to text. We don't. But we do have a function called format. So you can do format, and you can see that if we look at format, let's see if we can get it up here. If we look at format, it takes a value and potentially a length and a format number. We'll get back to those two in a second. But it takes a value and returns a text. Now it says Joker. So the weird thing is that we cannot go in here and create a Joker. It kind of looks like we can for a second with the coloring, but no, we cannot do a Joker. I would love for us to do Jokers, but that's a whole other video at some point. Let me know if you want that video. You know what I would love for AL to be able to do. Anyway, so in this case, you can pass anything to format and it will return a string. So if we run this guy, and we probably need to log in. We get the string. So format takes a lot of format decides to do something, and in this case, well, this is a decimal, so usually those are always base 10 shown, so it kind of makes sense what it's showing. But let's say it was an integer. Maybe we want it in hexadecimal, we want it in something else, but format kind of just takes a decision. But what if we change this a bit so we have more digits here? Let's see what happens. So notice that I am in Canada, and Canada is a mix of all sorts of crazy conventions. We have the metric system and we have the imperial system at the same time, but at least we got a dot as decimal separator, and we got a comma as 1,000 separator. So format at this point decided to format the decimal number not like it's here, right? So it's not formatting like it's in code. It's formatting like the default. This is how we're going to represent a number. Okay, so with that, then maybe it's time for us to take a look at the next two parameters, length and format number. So let's actually start with length and say 40. So let's do this. So we'll put this into something so we can see what happens, or if anything happens. So now we have added the second parameter, length. Let's see if something happens. Getting ready. Nothing really. So this seems to, well, that was actually not quite sure. Can you see that? So there's a bunch of characters here, but that, I think this is HTML. You can see the tooltip actually has the spaces. So we got 40 characters here, but now the browser is getting confused because browsers hate spaces next to spaces unless it's actually as a space command. So we got a length. Unless you need a fixed length, it's very common just to pass the second parameter as 0, which means you'll get the length that is needed to represent the string. So if we run this again, we will not get a string that's blank, nothing. We will get a string that has our exact content. So 0 is not an empty string. 0 is just whatever is needed and nothing more. So that leaves the third parameter, which is the very interesting one. And if we look at this, so the tooltip here is, well, not complete. If we look at the suggestion here, we can see that format actually has an overload. And the overload is that we can, as the third parameter, we can both give it a number and we can give it a string. So let's turn to, something as cool as the documentation. See, what can we actually do? Let's see if I'm able to how about we do format here? I think it's easier if we do this. Or maybe the exact same page. I had this page just before I started. Here we go. You can see that we have. Oh, let me see if we got the formatting values. So there are different ways of doing this. I thought I had the page all lined up. Here it is. Basic settings. So if we pass a 0, we get standard display format. So if I pass a 0 here, we should get the exact same thing as what I just had. Because I am in, wow. I pressed Alt T on that one and then it just, I have my region is English United States here, so that's why I'm getting that one. Where did we go? Here. The other one is 2, which is interesting. So if I pass a 2, now I get AL formatting, meaning that if you remember how I wrote this here, that's the formatting I get here. So 2 is the problem. If you produce something with 0, then it looks great in your country, but then if you have to, like, if you're building a file with data, then you have to send it somewhere else. They might have a different format where the comma, like I'm Danish, and in Denmark the comma is used as a decimal, and the dot is used for the thousands. So it really can result in something unpleasant if you read one number. You write a number in US format and read it as if you thought it was Danish or the other way around. So 2 will give you AL format. The other one I usually use is 9. So let's do 9, and then you'll see that this one looks basically the same as 2. But what if we change this to a date? So 9 is XML format. So if we create a date, so we'll do date equal today. And so if I do, well, I'll do a 0 to begin with. Then I get 7922 because I am on US format right now here. So month, day, year. If I go and select 2, so AL format, I get 070922D because that's how you format a date in AL. If I go and say 9, I get year dash month dash date because that's the way you have to format a date in XML and in JSON and all. Well, there's no dates in JSON per se, but that's typically how you handle whenever you need to work with dates on a import export to other systems kind of level. So 9 is a great way of handling that. But so now we played with this guy. We played with the version where this is a number. But what if this is a text? What can we do if this is a text? So let's say that. And now this is where, so here is a very, very important knowledge tip, that no matter how senior and graybeard and whatever it is the AL developer are, when it gets to creating this thing, everybody goes to the documentation, or they have a cheat sheet somewhere. So in the documentation, we can go down to let's continue with dates, right? And we can see here that you can build up. Let's take this one. That's a great example. So let's put this in here. So this one's, you build this up with commands and stuff in between commands. So commands are in brackets and stuff in between are not in brackets. So this one has an indication whether this is a closing date. Then it has the day, a dot, a space, the month, text space and the year 4, which is different from year because that's only a 2-digit. So if I run this now, I get 9th of July 2022. And let's go back to the documentation for a second here. So you can see that all of these also have a format number. So this is also a number 4, but you can build them. So for instance, what if you, instead of year 4, actually needed this as just a normal year? Well, you can go remove the 4. So now it's the year command. And if we run this, we get it formatted like that. Let me go back to the documentation here for a second. And you can see that, so there's a bunch of options, decimals, and examples, and US decimal, standard date formats, more dates, time, how to do time. Here's also hours, 24, and then you comma 2 means, hey, this should fill out 2 characters. So if we can actually, let's do this for, that's also a fun one. So let's try this one. So we'll create a TI and a time, and then we'll do TI colon. Well, how about we do this instead? Just call the time instead. So we'll pass this guy. So let's run it first just to be sure that it makes sense. So we get this little space, I think. But this is late night in British Columbia. And maybe we should actually have done this with the time variable so we could set it to something useful. So 010203T. How about that? Let's just make sure that we get something interesting here. So that worked, but what if we remove the filler character here? So filler character and use 0 as a filler character. So let's remove that, but we still had hours 24, 2. So we want the hours 24 to take up 2 characters. But now we got a space, so the default filler character, if we don't specify a filler character, we get a space. We can put that in again, minutes 2, seconds 2, and then we got some seconds decimal and commas, and there's a bunch of formatting options here. If you want it with colon, you can add the colon in as filler character and so on. We got date time, we got integers, which are only the ones we looked at, booleans, whether you want true, false, uppercase, lowercase, or you want the XML one, GUID. So a GUID or GUID is a bunch of binary bytes, so full 0 to 255 values in memory. So there's no characters per se that you can type where you can type in the value of a GUID. So when it comes to GUID, we usually do a hexadecimal representation, and that can be shown in a lot of different ways. So we are kind of using BC used to always being shown with the curly brackets because that's kind of a Microsoft thing. Sometimes you might want to show it without anything. So without spaces, without curly brackets, or sorry, without the dashes. Maybe you need to format it as hexadecimal instead. you can do that. So there's a prefix OX. So there's a bunch of different ways. Enums, how can we show enums as text or number? Options and so on. And now we're already 20 minutes in, sorry. So format is really cool at showing the text representation of a variable. The one I want to end with another thing. So if I create a JSON object, let's get rid of all this thing. No, and we add something, value, comma 1, 2, 3, and we do add house, comma ABC. So now we have a JSON. So what we can also do with format, that is, we can also pass something like this. So now we're passing a complex structure, but the complex structure in case of a JSON object has a behind the scene, because this is actually .NET, has a toString function that format actually uses in these cases. So I don't think we can, let's see if this makes any difference. There shouldn't be a standard format 56 on a JSON string. Maybe it yells at me. Yeah, it does. Eric, it's too stupid. 56 doesn't exist. Well, how about 1? Do we think 1 exists? 0 exists because that's the same as not passing anything. 1 is the same. My guess is that 1, 2, and 9 works. I'm pretty sure that there's no 3 in this case. It would be pretty cool if that 3 would be the one we're missing actually on JSON is the pretty formatted one. So hey Microsoft, you want to do that? Just do it as a 3, and then we're happy. Anyway, that's format. I think the important thing here is to remember that if we have something like a date, then we formatted that to a string. We do that because we have a need to show the date. We don't want to ever store a date as a string. It's always for presenting to the user, for putting into a file or something like that. It's never for internal storage. So format is to take anything, turn that into a string. Now that you know this, how about checking out this guy? That's a good one. I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.